Hey guys, how are we all today? Where are we at today?
And then Frosty here, we're in the Caribbean with a coconut tree at the back. Nah, just joking, we're at a local coffee shop. Thought we'd get out in the nice, good weather in the sun today and have a bit of a chat.
Yes, so another installment of Ed's Tantrums. So, kick us off, Ed. We're obviously going to be talking a little about return to sport and meeting the criteria.
Huge, important parts. So the thing is, although we're super happy that there's more and more people engaged in sports and physical activity nowadays, it also means that the injury rates are actually increasing because people aren't taking enough preventative measures to actually reduce those risks of injuries in the first place. But the main thing is, such as, let's say, for example, an ACL injury. People aren't meeting the criteria before returning to sports. That's the main thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, as Ed said, great that there's more participation in sport throughout from pre-teen and throughout teenage years. There's a few factors that are contributing to these increase in injuries. A few different theories, other things like potentially children just being bigger these days, not as far as an obesity thing, but just we're creating bigger human beings these days, so therefore having to absorb a lot more force these days when it comes to running and jumping and landing, all those sort of things. So obviously one we know that's really prevalent these days is, as you touched on there, the ACL becoming very, very prevalent. Much more so with females as well, which we've spoken about before. Some things that can be changed, but things that just predispose them to be much more susceptible. That obviously can't be changed biomechanically, mechanically, anatomically, hormone-based sort of things. But
that's right.
The next point obviously is when we do sustain an injury, it's about doing the rehab, right?
That's right. Even if it's not an ACL, it's a muscle strain, or regardless of what it is, people aren't doing sufficient rehab. They're just not committing to that time frame that they need to be able to follow through and get things done in the correct way to actually return to sport and take it to that next level.
So like whether it's a hamstring strain, doing the rehab for the 4 weeks, whether it's an ACL rupture and having the reconstruction, which requires a minimum 6 months real intense training, which Ed, I know you're doing working with a couple of ACLs on their road to recovery, and talk us through a little bit about what that involves.
That's right, they're very well down the track, so they're almost 6 months past into kind of their rehab, and they're doing actually really well. So they're into that phase where we're actually starting to zone in a bit more on those plyometric side of things, return to sport, change the direction, and still building up on that strength. But they're doing really well, and they're looking promising.
Great people to work with as well.
From soccer players to footy. So
absolutely,
it's been awesome.
And so again, ACL leads this next point, but a lot of the times when it comes to the amateur and semi-professionals returning, whether it be an ankle sprain, ligament related, or muscle strain, is meeting that criteria before returning to sport. So talk us through that, Ed. That's another really, really big factor.
Exactly, hard work pays off. So the thing is that people are basically day-to-day life, people are always in a rush to do things. You guys gotta step back sometimes and assess things, see where you're at, and see if it's safe to do things in the first place. People are rushing back into sports. Like, obviously they're eager to play, get back on the footy field or on the sporting field, and without meeting the criteria to actually return to sports. And then that just sets them up for failure, basically. We wouldn't be doing a good job if we kind of let people get back out there and back in the clinic a couple of months later with the same injury, if not worse.
Certainly, it's a fine balance, isn't it? Look, it's obviously great to have the eagerness. We want to get you back to sport as soon as possible, but it's all well and good to get back as soon as possible, but there's no point in doing so if you're going to be off the field again in the next week or two. So
there's nothing worse than going back feeling pretty good, or even going back and not feeling that you're 100%.
Exactly. So I think the biggest one is when it comes to returning to sport post ACL, a lot of people are just going with the calendar, looking at the calendar, which we've done a video previously on that, Ed, as well, with you're going, we've done 12 months post-op, we're good to go. The calendar says we should be all fine, but the reality is that we're not meeting, a lot of the people are not meeting that criteria to indicate that there's what's called a leg symmetry. So having a nice even symmetry of strength, particularly on things like hopping, so a hop series, which we tend to go through. talk us through that, Ed. Obviously, that's something that you're currently working with
Yes.
at the moment.
So obviously hopping single leg stuff is super important. You need that balance between your left and right to kind of have that symmetry to return to sports. If not, you'll be going back with one side stronger than the other and you'll be walking lopsided.
And so that just leads to this really damning re-injury rate. So particularly the youngsters, you know, in their first couple of years, something like 30% are re-rupturing, or the other side, and you know, just going in circles.
That's
and
right. So that's
having
why,
unfulfilled careers.
Yeah, definitely. That's why in the injury rehab center we go through kind of full testing. We make sure we have all the data we need and sufficient evidence to make that clinical decision if you're ready or not to return to sport.
That's right, and it lays the foundation of what needs to be done from where you are post-injury, out of that you know, the nasty sore phase of identifying where you're at and what you need to do to get where you need to be, basically. So really paves the way, establishes the baseline, what needs to be addressed, so it's really 100% tailored to you. Through our super session, which is a really unique feature we have at the injury rehab. I love going through them with patients and seeing the surprises that they get. Sometimes
I've put my body self for it a couple of times, and it's grueling, but it pays off.
Absolutely. Plus being able to use the patented mat as well, especially going through those hop series as we talked about, putting numbers on it, and also the awesome technology that we get to use for monitoring strength, monitoring power, all those sort of things.
At our clinic, we have force plates. Something you probably won't find anywhere else, which is super useful to use in terms of loading, how much you're loading and how much impact force you're putting through your legs in terms of jumping and takeoff. Really important in terms of return to sport and reducing kind of those risks of re-injury.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, moral of today, meet the criteria, right?
Meet the criteria, put in the hard work, it definitely pays off. If you're not feeling 100%, then you probably shouldn't be back on the sporting field. You'll probably end up getting injured again.
Exactly. Also, enjoy a nice coffee at the Tradesman.
That's right.
See you guys.
We're not at the Caribbeans. We'll be there soon.